In 1274 BC, one of the most powerful men on earth lost a battle so badly that he decided to just lie about it. Not to his wife, not to his friends, not to his generals, to an entire nation. Permanently, in stone. And here's the insane part. It worked for 3,000 years and nobody knew the truth. This is the story of Ramesses II, the world's first propagandist, and possibly its greatest clown. But before we get to the lie, you need to understand who this man actually was. Because Ramesses wasn't just any pharaoh. He was the pharaoh, ruled Egypt for 66 years. That's longer than most people alive today have been alive. Had somewhere between 100 and 200 children. We stopped counting. Built more statues of himself than any other ruler in the entire history of ancient Egypt. Every temple, every monument, every wall, his face and his face. If Instagram existed in 1274 BC, Ramesses would have posted 12 times a day and never replied to comments. He was that guy. But here's what you need to understand about power. It's never enough. The moment you stop proving you're powerful, people start wondering if you still are. And Ramesses knew this better than anyone, which is exactly why what happened next was so dangerous for him. It's 1274 BC, and a new threat is rising in the north, the Hittites. Now, if you haven't heard of the Hittites, don't worry, that's part of the problem. We'll get to that. The Hittites were an empire based in modern-day Turkey. Massive army, advanced iron weapons, extremely organized military, and they wanted control of a city called Kadesh, a critical trading hub sitting right between Egypt and the Hittite Empire. Whoever controlled Kadesh controlled the trade routes. Whoever controlled the trade routes controlled the money, and whoever controlled the money controlled everything. So both empires sent their armies. Ramesses personally led his forces north. 4 divisions, tens of thousands of soldiers. He was confident. He was powerful. He was the greatest pharaoh who ever lived, and he was about to walk into the most embarrassing military disaster of his career. Here's where it gets good. Before reaching Kadesh, Ramesses captured 2 men wandering near his camp. He interrogated them. They told him, "The Hittite army is far away. 2 days' march at least. You're safe. Keep moving." Ramesses believed them. He ordered his 1st division to advance toward Kadesh, set up camp, relaxed. What he didn't know, those 2 men were not wandering locals. They were Hittite spies, sent specifically to feed him false information. And the Hittite army, not 2 days away, they were hiding behind a hill, right next to his camp, 2,500 chariots, each carrying 3 soldiers. That's 7,500 heavily armed fighters, hidden, silent, waiting. The moment Ramesses split his army, they attacked. They hit the 2nd Egyptian division while it was still marching, scattered them completely. Then they turned and drove straight into Ramesses' camp. Absolute chaos. Soldiers running, chariots crashing, the camp being overrun, and Ramesses, the greatest pharaoh who ever lived, was suddenly surrounded, outnumbered, and nearly captured. Now here's the moment that makes this story complicated, because Ramesses did not run. By all accounts, including the Hittite accounts, he fought back, personally, with his personal guard and whatever soldiers remained. He charged into the Hittite forces. Multiple times. Was it heroic? Genuinely, yes. Did it save the battle? Not really. The battle ground to a halt. Both sides exhausted. Both sides badly damaged. Neither army could push forward. And as the sun went down over Kadesh, both empires quietly agreed to stop fighting and go home. No winner. No loser. A bloody, expensive, embarrassing stalemate. And that right there is where a normal ruler would have told the truth. Tough battle. Hard day. We fought well. We go home. Ramesses was not a normal ruler. The moment Ramesses returned to Egypt, the machinery started moving. He summoned his scribes, his artists, his stonecutters, and he gave them a very specific instruction. Route down what happened at Kadesh. Not what actually happened. What should have happened. The version where Ramesses, alone, abandoned by his cowardly soldiers, stood against the entire Hittite army. and won, single-handedly, like a god. He even commissioned a poem about it. The Poem of Pentar, named after the scribe who wrote it down, it describes Ramesses charging into the enemy alone, calling out to the god Amun, and basically turning into an unstoppable force of nature. It is one of the earliest pieces of written propaganda in human history. And it wasn't just written down on one scroll and filed away somewhere. It was carved into stone across 5 major temples: Abu Simbel, Karnak, Luxor, Abyssos, Ramesseum, 5 temples. All telling the same story, all saying the same thing: Ramesses won. Ramesses was a god. Ramesses was invincible. Now imagine you're an ordinary Egyptian living in 1250 BC. You can't read. Most people couldn't, but you walk past these temples every single day. You see towering images of your pharaoh, massive, heroic, standing over tiny fleeing enemies. You hear priests reading the poem aloud. You hear the story repeated in markets, in homes, in schools. What do you believe? You believe what the walls say, because the walls are the truth. The walls have always been the truth. And the walls say Ramesses won. But here's where it gets truly mind-bending. Fast forward 3,000 years. European archaeologists begin discovering these temples in the 1800s. They find the inscriptions. They translate the Poem of Pentar, and for decades they believe it. They write in their books. Ramesses won the Battle of Kadesh. Great Egyptian victory, proof of military genius. It took until archaeologists also discovered Hittite records, written in a completely different language, found in a completely different country, to piece together what actually happened. And here's the twist that should make your jaw drop. The Hittite records also claimed victory. Both sides, claiming they won, at the same battle. On the same day, the truth was buried between 2 lies, written in 2 different languages, found 3,000 years apart. That is how good Ramesses was at controlling the story. So why does any of this matter today? Because nothing has changed. The mechanism Ramesses used in 1274 BC is identical to what happens right now, today. In every country on earth, control the story, control reality. There was no free press in ancient Egypt, no independent journalists, no opposition accounts, no fact-checkers. There was only what got carved in stone, and whoever held the chisel held the truth. Today, the chisel is an algorithm, a news channel, a verified account with 50 million followers. The temples are screens. The priests reading the poem aloud are anchors, influencers, and spokespeople. And the ordinary Egyptian walking past the temple walls every day? That's you. That's me. That's all of us. Ramesses understood something that every powerful person since has quietly known. Most people don't seek out the truth. They absorb whatever story surrounds them, which means the person who builds the surroundings builds reality. A pharaoh who loses a battle and tells the truth gets questioned. A pharaoh who loses a battle and carves his victory into 5 temples rules for 66 years and gets remembered for 3,000 more. The first propaganda campaign in history happened 3,300 years ago, and it worked so well. Every ruler, every government, every institution since then has been running the same playbook. The only thing that's changed is the material. Stone became paper. Paper became broadcast. Broadcast became the internet. But the game is identical. Control the story. Control the people. Control history. Ramesses didn't invent lying. He invented something far more dangerous. He invented the system, and we're still living inside it. If you want to understand who else ran this system and how it collapsed, subscribe, because next we're covering the ruler who took propaganda so far, his own people eventually stopped believing anything at all. And that story is even darker than this one.